Hello and welcome. Today I'm sharing with you a few detective investigation type games that I've played over the last year or two, as after playing Inspector Waffles the early days as the Evercade Game of the Month, well, I enjoyed the investigative aspect to a degree, although the story and tone of it wasn't really to my taste. So I thought I'd share with you some that are more to my taste. Although these aren't Evercade games, obviously in most cases, and no doubt some of these will be very familiar to you. Others perhaps less so. First up is Nobody Wants to Die, a cyberpunk noir detective cinematic adventure.
Looking in the mirror at yourself, sometimes the scariest thing imaginable. But it was time to face myself on my own.
Released in 2024 for PlayStation 5, Windows and Xbox Series, whatever consoles, Nobody Wants to Die was developed by Critical Hit Games and published by PlayOn. In it you play a Rick Deckard-like character, a voiced protagonist which has a voice actor doing his very best Harrison Ford impression. And the Blade Runner comparisons don't end there. The story definitely has echoes of Blade Runner, along with elements of Altered Carbon, as in it's set in a future where consciousness can be transferred to other bodies, allowing people to live hundreds of years. In true noir style, you play a burned out detective, and in true cyberpunk style, you investigate through technological means, using a device which gives you a similar effect to the brain dance sequences in Cyberpunk 2077, allowing you to reconstruct past events and rewind time to deduct what happened. The game plays out with a series of investigations and has an overarching plot. Graphically, the game is very good, the voice acting is generally pretty good, the soundtrack is also very effective, and it really captures a very good fusion of cyberpunk and film noir. And the investigation side of things is really well done, although ultimately it does largely come down to walk around an area, find the clues, interact with them, follow a sequence of events or use devices and learn more. But I think it all plays out well and keeps you intrigued, even though the writing isn't anywhere near as good as the things it's based upon. It'll take you somewhere around 5-6 hours to finish, so it's not an overly long game, and as the whole thing is quite scripted, there's not a lot of player agency. But I enjoyed playing through it, and as I paid I think £6 for it, I got my money's worth. If the premise of it intrigues you, then yeah, I recommend checking it out if you can find it at a good price.
The creature stands on long stilt-like legs, antennae hanging from its head like a woman's hair, white and curled at the tips.
Next up is Disco Elysium, a very famous game I think, and I'm sure that there's been so much said about the game that I don't think I really have anything to add to the conversation, so I'm going to keep this short. You play a blackout drunk detective called Harry as he investigates a murder and discovers who he is, uncovers a conspiracy and more. What I think it's most famous for is having your skills talk to you as part of the dialogue. Now I played the final cut or whatever they call it, and I think that's the only version you can really get hold of now anyway. Anyway, it's a very narrative-driven role-playing game with almost no combat, exceptional world building, and it's utterly compelling. So if you haven't played already, and the idea of playing an isometric RPG with no combat actually appeals to you, do yourself a favour and pick it up. Next up is the Dark Side Detective, a retro-styled point-and-click adventure that's very streamlined and has a humour that's sort of in line with the classic LucasArts-style adventures. Originally released in 2017, in it you play as Detective Francis McQueen, who is partnered up with Officer Dooley, and they're part of the Dark Side division of the police. There's a number of cases, and they're effectively like X-Files Monster of the Week episodes. They last around 20 minutes to 40 minutes each. The tone is quite satirical, it's a very LucasArts style with elements of Twin Peaks, X-Files, and if you played Thimbleweed Park you probably got an idea of the vibe of this game goes for. It is very much dialogue driven, and there's no voice acting. And as I mentioned, it is a streamlined point-and-click adventure. There's no navigating your character around the screen. You just go from screen to screen and point and click on the various items you want to interact with. The graphics are quite charming, the music is good, the writing is humorous, and while the puzzles aren't overly difficult, there's very little in the way of moon logic or nothing that really springs to mind, it will leave you thinking and occasionally pixel hunting. The highlight of it is the writing and the humour, which is reflected in the pixel art. It's quite meta and there's quite a lot of nostalgia bait, like, hey, I know that reference and all that sort of thing. And while the actual plot is rather light, it is a fun, breezy playthrough. You can probably finish it all in under 4 hours. I can't remember exactly what I paid for this, but it really wasn't much. Like maybe under £1 or £2, something like that. I certainly got my money's worth with it. So perhaps an ideal one if you want to recapture those LucasArts adventure feels without dedicating too much time to it. And my final game for this video is The Sinking City, developed by Frogwares and originally released in 2019. I originally played it on the PlayStation 4, but recently played through it again on the Xbox with the remastered, or whatever they called it, edition. In it you play as Detective Charles Reed, a private investigator who has travelled to Oakmont, the titular sinking city, as he's having nightmares and he's feeling drawn to it. What follows is a Lovecraftian tale set in the open world of the city of Oakmont. The main feature of the game and its strongest mechanic is the investigation system. You gather clues and evidence and cross-reference it and use your mind palace to form conclusions. Reed has a sort of special mystic magic vision that allows him to see things that others might not see, and based on the evidence you find, you can sort of reconstruct what has happened. The game also features a sanity system, with the screen getting glitchy and your vision warping as your sanity struggles, and will require you to take medication to keep that at bay. The investigation side of the game is fantastic and really well handled. The story is really well done, the atmosphere is brilliant. It's definitely one of the best Lovecraftian games that I've played, at least in terms of execution and atmosphere. Where the game does struggle is with the combat and the open world. The combat is very basic and a little bit cumbersome. Fortunately, it's not a major focus of the game, and Oakmont is a brilliant setting. Everything looks fantastic, and at first wandering around the city is quite impressive, but you soon realise how empty and unengaging the open world is despite the atmosphere. Fortunately, there is a fast travel system which you'll probably make good use of. It's also not the most technically polished game, although it was improved in the remaster. That said, first time round, the only real issue I came across was a bit of clipping when piloting the boat, and one or two T-posing NPCs, and they weren't even ones you interact with, just random people on the streets. But really the things that the game struggles with are essentially unnecessary fluff. The core of the game, the investigation and the story, are both absolutely fantastic, which made it easy for me to overlook the flaws. As you can tell, I really enjoyed The Sinking City, which probably comes as a surprise to no one who knows me to any degree. I really should get around to checking out some Frogwares Sherlock Holmes games a bit more than I have. I did play one of them a little while ago, some years ago, The Devil's Daughter I think it was, but I didn't even get past the intro and I thought I'd come back to it and never got around to it. Anyway, that's it for this video about other investigative detective type games. If there's any others you'd recommend, please drop them in the comments. Have you played any of these? Any thoughts on them? Anyway, I thought I'd try and do something else branching out from the Evercade side of things. There will be more things like this, but I'm not sure what and when. But I think that's enough waffling for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.